Welcome to the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast, where we share what it takes to build a successful career as a musician in musical theater and beyond. With your host, Clayton Craddock.
Welcome to Broadway Drumming 101. My guest today is Noah Hadland. How are you today?
I'm great, man. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Such a legendary podcast in the industry. Very honored to be a small part of it.
Legend. Oh, man. No, you are a future legend here because you are doing so much in New York City. You know, there are people that come to New York and wind up getting on the radar of a lot of people. And I went to lunch with a great drummer named Max Braunstein. He said, man, you got to have Noah on your podcast. He is the man. And I see that you are the man because you are subbing on how many shows right now?
7 currently. 6 on Broadway, 1 off Broadway, but 7.
Jeez. So what are the shows that you're doing right now?
Oh, man. It's hard to name them all. And I've been trying to I go uptown to downtown so I can hit them all. So right now I sub it at Ragtime. I sub at Great Gatsby, Just in Time, Wicked, 25th Annual, Putnam County Spelling Bee, Chess, and Death Becomes Her.
Damn.
I've been very lucky, and it keeps me decently busy, that's for sure.
All right. That's, it reminds me of people like Sean McDaniel and Ryan McCausland, masters at juggling, that kind of thing. But how did you wind up getting to sub on 7 different shows? What was the first show that you subbed on?
Oh man, it's kind of, I wasn't subbing on Broadway at all. And back in 2023, still height of COVID times. And I got a very, very last minute call to sight read MJ on Broadway. And so sight reading the show was my Broadway debut. I ended up doing most of Act 1 before they could get a drummer there who actually knew the show. But I was up there for maybe an hour sight reading.
So how did that happen? What was the deal with that?
So random. I mean, I think the story that I had heard was the main drummer was out of town on a gig and the sub drummer had tested positive for COVID like 90 minutes before the show.
Okay.
Very last minute test that came in and none of the other subs were around. And so they just started calling anyone who was in Midtown. And Dan Berkery, who has been a great friend and mentor to me, got the call. And I'm so lucky that he was booked that day. And he said, call Noah. And I ended up running. I was at my studio on 39th Street and I ran to the H&M in Times Square to get black clothes because I wasn't wearing black clothes. So I ran to H&M, bought black clothing, and then ran up to the Neil Simon Theater. Got there with about 45 minutes before downbeat. Quickly went through the charts and then just started reading. And then luckily, like about an hour in, the great Gene Lake, whose show it is, he got there and relieved me. And I couldn't have been more relieved to see him walk in the door. That was my Broadway debut in 2023.
So when you got to MJ, and I've seen the score, and you had to sight read the very beginning of that show. It starts out with the rim click thing, and then it goes into beat it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't start out. It's like, was it 5, 6, 7, 8, click, click, click? You're playing, and then you have to hit the bass drum in certain parts that matches the choreography. Did you get all that stuff right?
I hope I got some of it right. It was such a blur. And in that moment, I was just trying to think, play solidly, play on the click, like just keep the train on the tracks. I think reflecting on it afterwards, I remember being impressed with myself for how much I did catch. And also like trying to release any like sadness over the stuff I didn't catch. Like I was just like, keep it on the click, make it feel good. And like, let's just go. But it's a tough, I think because the kick drum comes in on beat 2 there, I think is
yes. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I was, just trying to play solidly, and that was about all I could do in that moment.
And you're on stage.
On stage, yeah. Yeah, it was crazy.
And then the cart's going back and forth, and man,
yeah,
that's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things about that score that I couldn't get right after, I was trying to learn it, but I decided to not do it. But the beginning of Act 2, when there's the big band thing, and it has, 4 beats of 4, measure 4, measure 4, then measure 5.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get that hit. I was like, I don't know what was going on. I had a mental block for the longest time.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, and I'm very proud of having sight read that first act. I'm more proud of after the fact. I started subbing for Gene there and like actually learning the show and like getting approved and getting designated there. And like that is I'm more proud in hindsight of that. I think, many, many drummers could have gone in and played on the click and sight read it. And, I was very lucky it was me. I don't think I did anything particularly special that day, but having gone back afterwards and having done all the work, I'm much more proud of in hindsight.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, before we go into today's times, let's
Yeah.
go back. I
Yeah.
see you went to NYU, but before that, you
Yeah.
went to high school someplace, you went to elementary school.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. Mostly grew up in Phoenix, Arizona.
What part of Vegas were you?
It was like the northern side of Vegas, kind of near Summerlin, but still in Vegas. I lived there till I was 8, and then moved to Phoenix and did high school and all that in Phoenix, Arizona. So my extended family's in Vegas. I consider Vegas home, but I really did my formative drumming years in Phoenix. So the desert is my home, is what I always say. Love it out there. I miss it.
I hear you. I was looking through your Instagram. I saw that you were in some place where you were on some water and there was like mesas. What lake
Oh, yeah, yeah.
something?
Probably Lake Powell, I think is what.
Yes,
Oh man,
yes,
you got to get out there. It's beautiful. It's right by the Grand
really,
Canyon. You're basically on a boat in the Grand Canyon. It's not quite the Grand Canyon, but it feels like it.
really.
Yeah. It's a great place to grow up.
Yeah, when I was on tour many, many years ago, we went all across the United States and went to the Northwest and came down through the Southwest. As soon as I was seeing the Southwest and the mesas and the mountains, it's like, this really speaks to me. And it
Yeah.
always has. Whenever I go back, even traveling back and forth across the United States, and I look out of the window and I see when we get to the Rocky Mountains, it's like, okay, I feel more at peace. So yeah, I get it, but I got to get to that Lake Powell thing. It was just,
Yeah.
it's like you're, instead of being in the desert and seeing the mesas, you're like on water.
Yeah, exactly. The lake is huge. You can drive across it on your boat for hours and not get through because it goes through all the canyons and stuff. So
Mm.
highly recommend once you get out there.
So grew up in Phoenix.
Yeah.
What was the thing that made you say, you know what, I want to play drums for a living?
My uncle, my dad's brother, was always a drummer when I was growing up, and he gave me my first drum set. He was getting rid of an old one. When I was 7, he gave me his, and that was kind of the moment for me. I mean, it was love at first paradiddle. I don't know. I was playing lots of youth sports and all that stuff, but I started drumming at 7, and looking back, like that's kind of the only thing I ever wanted to do after that. So I
Mm.
took advantage of all the programs at my school, did drumline, did orchestra, did all state orchestra, just kind of anything that I could do to play drums as a kid was all I ever wanted to do. So it's hard to pinpoint a moment when I knew I wanted to do it professionally, other than like right away. I remember like even in I think in a middle school yearbook where it said, "Where do you want to go to college?" I had already said Berkeley College of Music. So I'm impressed with myself as like a 13-year-old knowing about Berkeley. I didn't end up going there. I'm very happy with, I went to NYU. I'm very happy with that decision. But even at that age, I knew that that was kind of something that I wanted to orient myself towards. And I've just been, I just turned 30. I'm reflecting back, like I'm so grateful that my life has been such that I started playing drums at 7 and now I'm here and I'm still playing drums. It's hard to have enough gratitude. I have to remind myself all the time how lucky I am. So,
So it was your uncle that was your big influence at first?
and he still is out in Arizona now, and he plays professionally too, more in the jazz scene down in Tucson, Arizona, where there's a pretty happening scene down there. And I've been inspired by him. And as I was kind of reflecting on my past before we started talking, I think a really defining moment that was influenced by him. We were both drum set players growing up, but he studied classical percussion in college. And so when it was time for me to go to college, my degree is in classical percussion, even though I was a drum set player all through my childhood. I think that decision in particular was very influenced by him, and I'm very grateful for that pathway I went. I think there's a part of me maybe that misses not having the opportunity to have done an undergrad in drum set, but especially now that I've landed mostly in the theater world, I'm very grateful for my classical background, just with how much opportunity there is to play classical instruments, even when you're on a challenging drum set book. Um, so that's kind of been my journey, just just loved playing drums as a kid and then took it to college and was very lucky to form a career after college.
Did you have drumming heroes when you were growing up, like in bands or
Yeah.
other people?
Yeah. My biggest drumming influence when I was a kid, it can be embarrassing, depend on who you talk to, was Carter Beauford from Dave Matthews Band. I loved Dave Matthews Band growing up, but I
What?
think Carter's
What?
drumming is like indisputably great, whether or not you know
Yeah.
Dave Matthews. But I was obsessed with Dave Matthews when I was a kid, and I think that that helped me grow as a drummer because I was always, I mean, they play in weird time signatures. Carter's always playing crazy fills, and like that was what I was aspiring to play on my drum set when I was a kid. I would just hit go on any of their live albums and sit there and play the
Mm.
whole thing. And I think that really helped me develop some chops as a teenager. So yeah, Carter Beauford was my biggest influence as a kid. And then, you know, as I've gotten older, it's, you know, changed over time. But anytime I listen to him play, I kind of remember that that's where my roots were.
What was the first song that you remember hearing from them?
I mean, Ants Marching, you know, the
Okay.
classic one. But they have on their Live at Red Rocks 1995 album, there's a song called Number 36, and it starts with a 2 minute long drum solo. And to me, that I could sing it as a teenager. Like I would just sit there and sing the drum solo because it was so inspiring to me. So that record, the 1995 Live at Red Rocks album, to me was like as good as it got when I was growing up.
Hold on, I'm just looking that up right now. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah. Number 36 is the name of the song with the drum solo at the top.
my God, there's so many live albums.
Oh, I know. They put out a lot of live records.
This one
That's the one. Yeah.
and the record,
Yeah.
the what's it called again?
Number 36 towards the bottom of the show.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a video I have. It's actually on my Instagram. I was at my sixth grade talent show. I played a drum solo as my talent show, and it was like my attempt as a 10-year-old kid at that drum solo. It's not great, but I look back and I admire myself for giving it a go.
So your uncle Carter Beauford,
Yeah,
any
I found like Jay Dilla and hip hop drumming when I was a teenager, and that really influenced my drumming from then. Once I got to college, I started playing more in the R&B and hip hop bands and kind of doing a deep dive on Jay Dilla and that like the Dilla feel, the Questlove thing, the D'Angelo thing.
hmm
Really helped me, I think, develop a sense of pocket because you learn that if you're going to play kind of a disjointed groove, you have to really be placing every note and you have to do it consistently or else you just sound bad. I
Mm.
kind of think that Jay Dilla, this band Hiatus Coyote, their drummer Perrin Moss, who they do a lot of that kind of Dilla feel thing, also had a big influence on me in my teenage years. And then after that, you know, got more into pop music. I'm a big fan of a band called the 1975. This drummer, George Daniel, I think he just plays the cleanest pop drumming that I've heard. I really love how he plays. So I think to me, those are kind of the big three throughout my career has been Carter Beauford, Jay Dilla, and George Daniel have been my biggest drum set influences, among a thousand others.
I remember listening to a Questlove podcast and he was interviewing Lenny Kravitz. Questlove let Lenny Kravitz hear the D'Angelo sessions for Voodoo.
Mm.
And the first thing Lenny said, the drums are off. Or like the drums are wrong. The drums are wrong. Because it was
Yeah.
like, that laid back thing. He's like, no, that's the way it's. He's like, no, the drums are wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember hearing that stuff and then watching people play it live. And I'm like, how do you do that? And then I realized I tried to do that. And it's a specific way of approaching that. Like you said, I guess you
Yeah.
have to play consistently wrong, like
Yeah. Yeah.
wrong every time to make it sound right. And I'm like, I'm leaving that to those people that can do
Yeah,
it
yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah, it's a
Fast.
swing, you know, it's a type of swing is the best way to feel it. You just kind of have to feel it.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
actually cool that people can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe when there's a Broadway show with that feel.
Yeah, yeah, maybe one day. Although I think my point was that like getting really into that, like, and the placement of everything has helped me when I'm playing straighter. I'm still kind
Mm,
of feeling that intentionality of where everything is going and still bringing that idea of like needing to place things consistently, you know,
mm.
right? Like kind of coming at it from the perspective of like, where is the pocket sitting has helped me even when I'm playing the most square, on the grid kind of groove.
Yeah, that's what to me that's what makes it feel right.
Yeah.
It's that approach. It's
Yeah.
actually cool. Good
Yeah.
way of looking at it. So you
Yeah.
went to NYU instead of Berkeley. Now, why'd you choose
Yeah.
NYU?
Uh, I think like many drummers of my generation, I ended up going to the Broadway seminar when I was in high school. They have a week-long seminar where they bring in Broadway drummers and you get to go sit in a pit. I did that in between my junior and senior year of high school. So I was 17, came to New York, got to sit in a Broadway pit for the first time, and I was like, this is it. Like how amazing. I was so inspired by the people they brought in. I got to go sit with John Epcar playing Spider-Man back in the day, which was just so cool to see as a 17-year-old. That's how I found NYU, and I ended up auditioning there early decision, like in the fall, and I got in with a scholarship. And so I actually didn't audition anywhere else. I was like, I'm going to go to New York City. I'm going to go to NYU. I knew then that Broadway was something that I was very interested in. I think at that time I wasn't singularly focused on making Broadway my career, but I loved Broadway shows. I used to go all the time to see all the tours in Phoenix, and going to NYU to see the seminar was really inspiring. And so that once I got in, that was kind of that. And I just knew I was moving to New York City, and I'm so grateful, like to have moved here at 18 and to have had 4 years of a safety net. I didn't end up, I don't have a graduate degree. I didn't do more school after NYU, but I think what NYU gave me was 4 years to be in New York studying, but also like gigging. I met so many people in the scene just naturally from being at school and just from hanging out and going to shows in New York. I think I started building my network at 18 rather than after getting a graduate degree and finally moving to New York. And I think that's been a big help now is like these people who I've subbed for are people I met 10 years ago. You start building these relationships early. I'm grateful for the grace I've gotten along the way. I think the danger of starting your network as an 18-year-old is like you're still learning who you are and how to play the drums. I mean, we're always still learning how to play the drums, but I'm grateful that it's gone mostly well and people have been really kind. And it's awesome now to have people who are my colleagues who I'll play drums for, sub for now, who are people I met when I was 18, 12 years ago. For me, NYU was just like the best decision. It really, I can't imagine having gone anywhere else.
Now, people that are listening or watching this may not understand where New York University is. It's in
Okay.
Greenwich Village,
Yeah.
and there are there's Bleak not oh yeah there's Bleecker Street that's right
Yeah.
there, and there's the area that is there. There are lots of nightclubs to play like Terra Blues, Bitter End,
Yeah.
Red Lion,
True. Yeah.
and even the Blue Note is all there. I mean, because you can't really go there and play,
Right.
or
Right.
even go in there unless you have $500 to like
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
But there's even I don't even know. There's Arthur's Tavern that's close to there too.
Yeah.
There's so many places, and all the like Smalls and all that stuff. And the 55 bar used to be around there. Did you wind up doing a lot of those, playing at a lot of those clubs back then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those were some of the most fun times. I played with a lot of just other students in at NYU, but like a lot of college bands I would come in and out of, and we'd play all the time at all those places. And down on the Lower East Side too, all those clubs down there. Just really formative times in my drumming career. And it was great because I was studying classical percussion during the day. And then I think that like I'm happy that I was able to continue playing drum set at these sort of like the rock clubs downtown. And I look back so fondly on it. I miss it. I mean, playing like a 12 a.m. set on a Tuesday night with five people in a room that could fit 100, but like I was having the greatest time, like I wouldn't trade that for a thing. It was so awesome. And yeah, just amazing to be studying music in the center of an area in New York that is just has such a history with all these spots was awesome. And I think helped me stay connected to drum set while I was studying classical percussion.
A while ago, I interviewed Javier Diaz, who was part of that NYU seminar. And that's where I met him and worked with him and realized he's on such a high level.
Yeah.
But he and other musicians were telling me about classical percussion, and I know nothing about it, but I'm learning about it through the people that I'm talking to. it's a whole different technique. The snare drums that you'd play
Yeah.
in a classical setting is completely different from a Ludwig Black Beauty.
Yeah.
Tell me why you chose to study classical.
When I was a teenager, I didn't feel connected to jazz music. I didn't really like it. And I was looking at where to study, and most drum set programs are jazz programs. I think maybe somewhere like Berkeley, obviously you can do other stuff. But at that age, I didn't feel super connected to jazz music. And I felt like, oh, I play the drums every day. Let me go broaden my horizons. In high school, I played in orchestra. I did like after school orchestras. So I had been around classical. It wasn't like a complete switch up for college. It just kind of felt like the path that was available. And the Broadway seminar happens within the percussion department at NYU, not the jazz drum set department. So that was kind of part of it too. It was just like, okay, this is where I go to, this is my next step. It felt obvious in a way that maybe doesn't make so much sense now, but I didn't really question it that much. I saw my uncle do it, and at that time I didn't want to study jazz. Now, of course, love jazz music. And I wish I had a little bit more of a foundation on it in my playing. So that's obvious, that's definitely changed. But at the time, it just felt like the next step. And I did love playing in orchestra. I don't do it anymore. Maybe one day it'd be cool to return to it. But I really did love it at that time. So it just felt like a natural next step. And I'm grateful for it because it gave me, I don't know, when you're a drummer, you're worrying so much about the pocket and the feel and the time, which is great. And then when you study percussion, I feel like I learned so much about finesse and tone production and intentionality in a way that I hadn't from my drum set playing at that time. So I think in a way, a lot of ways it was kind of a 4-year break from like intense drum set study, but I think it informs my drum set playing now in a way that I don't think it was a waste of time to study classical music.
In what way you think that has informed one has informed the other?
We'll get back to the episode in just a minute, but all of us here want to take a moment to say thank you for supporting the podcast and for listening. We also want to let you know that Clayton's new book, Broadway Bound and Beyond, A Musician's Guide to Building a Theater Career, is officially out, and we're really proud of it. This book lays out what it actually takes to build a career on Broadway. The mindset, the preparation, the relationships, the money side of the business, and how to create longevity instead of just chasing the next gig. You can get your copy right now on Amazon.com. You can also get a signed copy by heading over to signaturebrandworks.com. If you're serious about your career, this book is for you. Now let's get back to the episode.
I think just coming back to being intentional about the sounds you're making, I think classical music encourages you to maybe think too hard about like mallet choices and instrument choices. And obviously you can do that as a drum set player too. But I think my background on drum set was like, I'll play any drums. Like, I don't care what the heads are. That was me at that time. And so classical music was the first time where it was like, no, you really, the difference between this triangle beater and this triangle beater is like half a gram. Like, which one are you gonna choose? And sometimes studying classical, that decision feels like the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life. Like, which triangle beater do I use on this passage matters a lot. And I love that, actually. I really love it. And so that kind of feeling applied to drum set, where I feel like it has taught me to be much more intentional about the drums I use, the sounds I'm going for, the mallets I'm using, the sticks I'm using. And then I just thought of this now, is I really learned how to play with a conductor there, which has helped. I've been very lucky to sub on a bunch of shows. I love playing on shows with a click. It's also really exciting to play with big orchestras. And I've been lucky to sub on a bunch of shows with big orchestras, and learning how to follow a conductor, and like the concept of like when the conductor shows you the downbeat, sometimes you're not playing where he shows the downbeat. You're playing behind them. That I think I learned how to play in an orchestra from studying classical. So definitely has not felt like a waste of time. And now when I am subbing on a show where you have to play a slime and drum set groove and then turn around and play timpani, I feel okay there. I'm not sweating the timpani as much as I would be if I hadn't studied it in school.
It's actually a really good point that you just made, because in my experience over the years, subbing at different places. Like I subbed for Bill Lanham at Aida, and then eventually I subbed for him at Cats in 2016. And then, dealing with the conductors there and not understanding the whole orchestra concept really. I mean, Aida was very short. I only subbed it like 2 or 3 times before it closed. But Cats, that's when I learned that the downbeat isn't there. It's halfway in between, and you got to work with the orchestra and know when to hit your drum. Like the first note of Cats is a cymbal choke. You hit the bass drum with a cymbal choke. And I was there at the downbeat, and everybody else came in here on the upbeat. I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
I started looking at the percussionist, who was Dave Roth at the time, and he was right in front of me. I just looked and followed him. And then even when there was something like he'd play a triangle, it's very deliberate, and he'd wait until it was such a different way of approaching music, and I had to adapt. But if you have that training already, you're already 5 steps ahead of somebody like myself who never had it before.
Yeah.
So when you're, it's just a question. I'm just curious if you're going to use one of those, really expensive classical snares. Would you ever put that behind a drum set and like crack it?
Oh, no. Yeah, definitely not. No way.
Why? No, why not?
I feel like depending on what head you have on there, it might be, a little thinner than a drum that you might put on a rock snare. You can definitely hit the drum. You don't have to be careful. But I'm thinking about when I play on a heavier show where I'm really laying the stick in the drum, it falls out of tune a little easier. Like everything's just more delicate.
Really?
And maybe I'm being a little dramatic. Like the modern drums are probably fine, but it does feel like when you're studying classical snare drum and you spend most of your time at pianissimo working on your buzz roll there, it does feel wrong to really hit the drum.
So you wouldn't play ants marching on a classical snare?
No, exactly. You would never do that.
That 2 and 4? No.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I love hitting a snare drum. But I love being able to play very softly too. I love the range.
You're studying classical percussion during the day, and you're playing all these clubs in New York at night.
I think I knew that right away. I mean, I already talked about the triangle, but I always say a moment I had was like my junior year on a Friday night when I was in a practice room by myself practicing triangle. And that was kind of a moment where I was like, I think drum set is more what speaks to me, which is why I have so much respect for incredible percussionists, because that sort of dedication you need to have to practice the triangle for hours, which is what you need to do if you're going to be in an orchestra.
Wait, tell me about that.
Man,
I've never even heard of that before.
Oh, it's amazing how many different sounds you can get out of a triangle. There's so many overtones in there, and to get a really pristine sound takes so much finesse. And depending on what piece you're playing, beater choice matters a ton, and timing. And there can be choppy triangle parts in orchestral music that are difficult to play with a little beater. So it takes practice, and it's why I love the Miller machine. And it kind of takes you being able to just hit the Miller machine makes your life a lot easier. Yeah, it's a tough instrument, man. And that's kind of what I had where I was like, I think I'm going to focus on being a drum set player after school. I have so much respect for percussionists, and I've been grateful for the times that I can still play percussion. I graduated school in 2018, and I've held one percussion gig since school, and everything else has been drum set or combined, but drum set mainly. And I've had one percussion gig since, which I was happy, but I think I'm a drummer at heart.
So you got out in 2018.
Yeah.
And what was the first professional gig that you had? Did you stayed in New York? You didn't go back to Phoenix or?
No. So during my college years, I had learned about this thing called summer stock theater, which are these theaters all around the country that will do 2 or 3 months of shows. And usually it'll be a season of like 5 or 6 different shows in that time. They don't pay well, but they're an incredible place for students and young professionals to go hone your craft. And so I learned about summer stock theater and ended up applying to one. And so in between my junior and senior year of college, I got a gig at the Wagon Wheel Center for the Arts in Warsaw, Indiana, for their whole summer season. So from the last day of my classes at NYU my junior year, flew to Indiana and spent the entire summer there playing. I think you play seven shows a week there, over six different productions. And to me, that was like the biggest gig in the world. I remember I was making $400 a week. And man, like as a 20-year-old, like making $400 a week playing drums, I was in heaven. I thought it was so cool. I was so grateful. My previous summers, I'd gone back to Phoenix to work just to make some extra money doing random jobs. And so getting to spend my summer playing drums for $400 a week was the coolest thing ever. And so that happened between my junior and senior year. I did it again after my senior year, went back to Wagon Wheel Center for the Arts in Indiana. And that season I cut short because I'd gotten my first tour contract then. My first gig, to answer your question about like what I was doing right after school, I was doing summer stock theater and was very lucky to land. It was an international contract very quickly after school, which was the result of all the networking I was doing during school. It wasn't like it just landed in my lap. I was very lucky to be offered this gig, but it was through a network of people. And so that was doing the Japan tour of the show A Chorus Line back in 2018. So we played a month in Tokyo and then toured around Japan, and that was amazing. I mean, absolutely life-changing. And so I consider the Chorus Line tour to be my first real job. That was my first time doing a show that was with, a creative team that was like part of the A Chorus Line institution. It was my first time doing an official production of a show. Although doing summer stock at the Wagon Wheel was kind of my first time holding down a chair regionally.
So tell me about Japan.
Oh, it was amazing. It was so fun. I mean, yeah.
Tell me what stood out the most and what was the biggest, was it a big culture shock going there? Obviously, it's a totally different culture.
Yeah, it was my first time in Asia. I was 22 and, just graduated college. So like that was just so exciting to get this gig. For me, like I being in Japan was incredible. I was so thrilled about the gig. I mean, that's what sticks with me the most was like getting to play A Chorus Line, which is such a drummer's show. I mean, that drum part is so awesome. And our director was Bjork Lee, who was in the original company of A Chorus Line in the 70s. And so as a drummer playing on a dance show with the director from the original production, who's an incredible dancer, I just learned so much about playing shows, playing theater, what it takes to do a show over and over again. And to do it in Japan was so cool. Trying to go back any chance I can get. The food was amazing. The people were so kind. The show was really popular, which was awesome. I mean, this contract was a non-union contract, so a lot of us were kind of right out of college. The actors were all younger, but it felt like we were massive Broadway stars over there. The stage door crowd was crazy. It was just the coolest experience to have as a 22-year-old. So being in Japan was amazing to me. Just having the gig was what I was so thrilled about.
So how did you get there?
I didn't have to send in audition tapes or anything. It was just through networking that I had done while I was studying in New York. My friend Matt Watson was the one who recommended me for the gig. He was another great drummer who happens to be from Phoenix, but we didn't know each other in Phoenix. And it was just one of those situations where he was offered the gig and he couldn't do it. And he gave my name in place. And I ended up getting along with the music director really well and got the gig. It feels like it came together really quickly, but also at the same time, I think it's just the result of a couple years of really intentional networking, as we all do when you're trying to piece together a career. So very lucky, but yeah, it was just through connections that I ended up on that gig.
So you also did a tour of Waitress, correct?
Yeah.
Was that?
So Chorus Line, we did basically a month and a half in Japan, give or take, and then came back to the US. And a couple months later, we did a few weeks in Shanghai on the Chorus Line tour. So got to do the show in China as well, and then came back from that. And just started kind of my freelancing career here in New York and was still playing with bands and trying to do little bits of theater, was trying to play at 54 Below whenever I could. It was just starting my career and ended up doing a workshop of a new show. And the MD of that workshop was the associate for Waitress on Broadway. And they were putting out another year of the tour. And after that week of doing a workshop with this guy, he said, "Hey, we need a drummer on this tour. Like, would you be interested?" And so I ended up doing that. It was also the non-union bus and truck tour of Waitress. And again, to me, like as I'm kind of recounting all these stories, I'm like remembering just how at every step away of the way it just felt like the biggest gig in the world. Making $400 at summer stock, I just felt like I was killing it. I was doing the thing. Going to Asia, I felt like, wow, I'm so lucky. And doing the Waitress bus and truck tour, I thought that like such a dream come true, especially with that show. The drum part is so good. Rich Mercurio wrote the drum part, and getting to learn the show from him to take it on the road was such an honor. I learned so much. And so we did that one for 14 months on the road. Bus and truck, a lot of one-nighters, a lot of split weeks, a couple of one-week sits. It was really a grind, but like I didn't sure it felt like a grind, it felt like a hustle, but I was so happy to be there that like it was just the best. Like really kind of like golden days kind of energy towards that. Like you don't know you're in the good old days until man, I loved doing a one-nighter in Paducah, Kentucky when I was 22. Come on. It was awesome.
I feel the same way. It's like when I did a bus and truck tour 26 years ago of a show called Footloose,
Yeah.
playing in Peoria, Illinois,
Yeah.
and all those small places and going in and going out and getting on the bus and traveling. You can do that when you're really young, and you should do that. It's a great experience of traveling across the United States. I remember my mother used to say, you know, it's God's country out there. It's a great country. You got to see it. But when you see the different, how vast this country is and how different this country is and how each state is so different, it's amazing how we're even the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
How we united.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very divided country, but somehow we're keeping it together right now.
Yeah.
But just to see the Midwest, how flat it is and how humid the South parts of the South are, and how dry Phoenix and Las Vegas is, and how beautiful California is, and the Northwest. And I don't know if did you get a chance to see the entire United States, or where did you go?
I've been almost everywhere. I'm missing Montana and Hawaii. I haven't been, are my last two states, but
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, I've been to the other 48.
Have you been to Alaska?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, wow.
That was not for work, but I have been to Alaska.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love to go to Alaska when it's
Yeah,
warm.
warm. But yeah, man, and it was so cool to see so much of the country. I also, after I did Waitress, I ended up doing the first national tour of a show called 1776. There was a revival in 2023, and I subbed on the Broadway show and then ended up doing the tour. And the tour was only 6 months, but that was actually kind of perfect. I mean, a 6 month tour is maybe in a lot of ways more ideal than doing one of the long running tours. Like it was just fun to pop out and pop back. But just so lucky to have seen so much of the country and to have played so many places, and it's so cool that like when you're in Peoria, Illinois, like people show up, like the people that live in Peoria, like they love Broadway just as much as New Yorkers love Broadway. Maybe you're a non-union tour and maybe you should be getting paid a little more, but like you're playing for a 2,000 seat house. A lot of the tour houses are way bigger than the Broadway houses are. So you're like out there slumming it, but you're playing to these huge crowds, and oh, it's just yeah, it was awesome. Especially in my younger 20s. It was just a dream come true to get to play drums. And I always tell like younger drummers, I mean, it's funny me saying that, but now that I'm 30, I feel like there are some younger drummers. I always tell them to go do a bus and truck tour. If that's the gig that you can get, like go do it. You can have your opinions on whether it should be unionized or whatever, but that work is there. And I learned so much, man. Like if you can play 8 shows a week doing one-nighters, then when you come into New York and you're playing 8 shows a week, sure, it's a grind, but it's, at least you don't have to pack up your drums every night like you did on the road.
Putting them into the cases.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Early before everyone else, before
Yes.
sound check, because your setup takes an hour to put up.
Yeah, things to be grateful for.
Yeah, for sure.
But you got to go through that stuff, and it's a learning experience, and you should know how to set up your drums. You come into New York and thinking, yeah, I have somebody set up. No, nobody's going to set up your drums.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
One of the biggest things I'd like to point out is that you formed and created your network, like you said, at 18 in college, and all of these different relationships led you to where you are today. And even the initial conversation of getting to sub at MJ is because you knew Dan Berkery. Now,
Yeah.
Dan didn't go to NYU, did he? I can't
No, he
remember.
didn't. No, no, he
Okay.
not into it.
Now, how did you meet Dan? I'm just curious how.
I think this is like one moment that changed my life, and it's so silly. My mom, who I love, is such a Broadway fan. She loves to see shows, and she loves to stage door after every show. She has to get every person's autograph. So years ago, we were at Book of Mormon. She was visiting me. I was in college. We went to go see Book of Mormon, and it was at that time Sean McDaniel's gig. And so my mom's there waiting for everyone's autographs, and I'm just kind of hanging back. And I thought, like, if Sean walks out the stage door, like, I'm gonna just stop him and say hi. And I didn't know him at that time. Tell him, fellow drummer, love the way you play. But then some guy with a stick bag walks out who's not Sean McDaniel, but he happened to have a stick bag with him. So I was like, oh, that must be a sub. And so he got walking down, and I kind of ran down the street after him, and I just stopped him. I had no idea who it was. Just said, hey, I'm Noah. I was in the audience. I thought the drums sounded great tonight. And it was Dan. And we stood there for a while and got to talking, and that was how we were connected. And very soon after that, like, he needed a very like low level sort of gig filled for him, and he threw that gig to me. And then after that, it's just kind of grown and grown and grown. But if I wouldn't have stopped him at that stage door to say congrats, like, that was such a life-changing moment for me for many reasons, because Dan is a great friend now, but he has given, like, a lot of the things that he's thrown my way have been things that have led to a million other opportunities in my career, including this MJ phone call. Man, just, yeah, so grateful. And it's funny that, like, that could have not happened if I didn't run after him on the street.
Chorus line, 1776,
Uh-huh.
waitress,
Uh-huh.
2020.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah. I was on the waitress tour at that point, and so we had done maybe 5 months on the road, and then we closed for COVID, and then came back afterwards, which
okay.
was amazing because the producers had told us, like, they're going to bring the tour back. These producers didn't bring certain tours back. Some tours closed early, and but they had told us that ours was definitely going to come back. It helped during that pandemic time to just know that I had a gig waiting for me at the end of the tunnel. But in the meantime, I was here. I got a job at Trader Joe's slinging groceries. It was a great way to spend the pandemic. I felt like I was able to, like, do something helpful to society. I mean, I was working in a grocery store during the toilet paper days when, like, people were stocking up on toilet paper for COVID, that moment in time. So it was crazy, but it was cool because it got me out of the house every day. And I felt like I was, like, really helping in whatever way I could.
So I'm curious about Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
What do they ask you as far as their hiring practices? Like, I know that whenever I go in there, they're like, "Hey, how are you?"
Yeah, yeah.
Do they tell you like you have to be nice? Like, what do they do?
I mean, they definitely have, like, they insist that the company culture is one of positivity, but they do treat the employees well. So it's not like a forced, you better be happy out there kind of vibe. There's always, like, snacks in the break room. There's always, like, check-ins. You're paid pretty well as far as, like, you're not getting rich, but, like, as far as a grocery store gig, you're doing okay. I always felt like there was a lot of support. Like, it does feel like there is, like, a company culture of positivity that then
Mm,
lets you be positive too. But you are encouraged to, like, chat with customers, and, like, if you get in a conversation with a customer while you're, like, fixing the shelf, like,
mm,
it's more important to have a good conversation rather than to make sure that, like, all the boxes of cereal are perfectly aligned. So
mm.
it is a cool, I mean, I do recommend, like, if anyone listening needs a day job, like, it was a great place to have a day job. And once gigs did start coming back, I always felt like, because they hired 18-year-olds, the bar was just, like, be more responsible than an 18-year-old kid, and they loved you. So, like, if you were able to, like, give them a heads up that, like, hey, I can't work that day, they appreciated that, because sometimes these, like, younger employees just wouldn't show up. So
Oh, wow.
it was good, and I felt like there was flexibility once gigs started coming back that I could get shifts covered. So it was a great place to go, and I was grateful to have that kind of community. I've been around musicians now for so long. It was fun to put myself in this community of people at Trader Joe's who had no clue. Like, when I was doing the waitress tour, if I was talking to someone from the industry, they knew it was non-union, they knew what I was making, they were, like, sizing me up in their head. And it was so cool to, like, be around people who had no clue about Broadway. And I tell them, like, oh, I'm doing this thing called waitress. And they're like, you're a waitress? Like, what? Like, so that was pretty cool too. Kind of digressing there, but it was a great place to work during the pandemic. And I was very lucky to know that the tour was coming back. And there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And eventually, like, we knew when our rehearsal date was. I got to put in my 2 weeks notice at Trader Joe's and go back on the road.
So you went on the road. When did that end?
Before we jump back into the episode, we want to ask a quick favor. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, please take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Those reviews really matter. They help other musicians like you find the podcast, and all of us here truly appreciate the support. We also want to let you know that we've got new merchandise available now at signaturebrandworks.com. We've got backpacks, sweatshirts, t-shirts, sweatpants, mugs, tote bags, hats, beanies, mouse pads, and a whole lot more. Practical stuff you can actually use, whether you're heading to rehearsal, the gym, a session, or just living your life. Thanks again for listening, for supporting the show, and for being part of this community. Now let's get back to the episode.
That was would have been spring of 2022. I think June 22 was the end of the Waitress tour. And then that summer we did an encore run of Chorus Line in Tokyo.
Wow.
I've done 3 separate Chorus Line contracts in Asia, which was so fun. That was just purely 1 month in Tokyo. It's amazing. And then I came back that fall, got back to freelancing, and that was when the MJ call happened. So it's been a very, like, reflecting on my career now, just going through it with you. I'm really like proud of how it's been kind of a steady climb. You know, like I feel like I really have learned everything from every rung of the ladder. I hope to continue climbing the ladder. Obviously, I don't know everything yet, and I think everything I've learned, it's just something that someone else has told me, you know, like every piece of advice that I have to tell a younger drummer is just something I've heard before. I do feel like it's been a steady climb. So like having 7 shows that I'm subbing on right now, it doesn't feel like I just plopped down here in New York and all of a sudden I'm subbing most nights of the week. You know, it feels like it's been something that's been a grind that I've been working towards since I moved here in 2014 for college.
How do you meet drummers that are playing on Broadway shows, and how do you get to sub for them?
Oh, that's the hardest question, really, because there's no one answer, man. You know, there's kind of the classic cold email. Some drummers are very responsive to that. Some drummers are very not responsive to that. I've always tried to, if I was intentionally trying to make a connection, to do so a little creatively or with a reason. If you're reaching out to a drummer, maybe it's because you know that this drummer knows this person and you had just worked with this person. So you have someone in common and you have a reason to be reaching out to them. Or you had just seen their show. Reaching out with a reason why you're doing it, I always thought helped me a little bit more than just pulling up the list of drummers with Broadway chairs and sending off the same cold email to every single one of them. I think keeping in mind that it's a people game, it's not, we're not, as musicians, we're not like business people. Well, we are business people, but I mean to say we're not a stereotypical like finance bro, you know, like we're not corporate people by nature. We're artists by nature, is my point. You are a business person by nature of being a freelancer, but we're not corporate people by nature. Remembering that as you're trying to build your network, I think is key. Just being cool and being personable. Sometimes you have to send a cold email and that's just how it is. And you need to know that like you might not get a response. But I think some context I've had recently is that I met the drummer Grant Braddock in 2019. I bought him a beer and it was total connections. Like, can I just pick your brain? We got a beer one night after one of his shows. That was in 2019. And in 2023, he had the show A Beautiful Noise on Broadway, the Neil Diamond show. And I ended up subbing for him on that. And so that kind of timeline of like, I first was introduced to him, you know, years before he actually asked me to sub for him, I think is important to keep in mind too. I think, you know, when I was younger, I thought you reach out and ask to sub and then someone's like, oh yeah, sure. Are you free Thursday night? But it is a long-term thing and it's about making relationships that take a long time to build. You know, sure, maybe you do one coffee hang where you pick someone's brain, but then the relationship forms when you run into each other on 8th Avenue a year later and you catch up quickly as you're running to the subway, or, you know, they're playing the late set at 54 Below and you're playing the early set. Like that, those sort of things, like that's where the relationships develop. And so it's a really long game. So you have to intentionally build your network, but you also have to kind of understand that it's not going to happen overnight. Has been the biggest context I've had at my old age of 30.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that because I've been trying to impress upon people that's kind of how it happens. It
Yeah.
various different ways, but I really want to ask you a question
Yeah.
since you're much younger than me and you said the key phrase coffee and pick your brain.
Yeah.
Did anyone tell you to say that and
Mhm.
write that to people? Did your professor say this is what you do? You say, "Can I have coffee and pick your brain?" Can you know? Because I get that a lot. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering where that came from.
Yeah, I can't think of like a specific time where someone said, this is what you say, but I feel like I've picked it up somewhere. I don't know. I certainly didn't come up with that. But
Okay.
yeah,
Did you ever say that to somebody? And did you ever
oh,
go to coffee?
I'm sure I definitely.
Did it
And
work for you?
not normally, I'd say. Sometimes people are open to it, um, but usually no. I mean, if it's people, especially with Broadway shows, I've never had my own Broadway show, but even I've had a couple off-Broadway shows, and even in that time, you get texts, emails, phone, like DMs all the time with people asking you for your time. So, no, usually it doesn't work. People are busy. People have their own lives. They're managing a million gigs. It's hard sometimes to make time for someone to pick your brain. I think is good to remember as you're sending those emails. Which is why I think I started trying to find more creative reasons to have a reason to get in touch with someone. I think works a lot better.
I think you're nailing it though, because you don't get to sub on 7 shows by
Mhm.
just sending out emails and expecting somebody to say, "Oh, sure, come down." I
Yeah.
mean, you knew people who knew people, and
Yeah.
those connections. Even us, we met very briefly
Yeah.
at the ninth floor, 54 below, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
We're connecting now because you know Max and I
Yeah.
know Max, and he
Yeah.
recommended we speak. And John Redsecker obviously knows you from some connections. Same thing with now Gene knows you.
Yeah. I've been very,
So
very lucky.
so wait, MJ,
Mm.
Aladdin.
Mm. Learning a lot.
Are you learning Aladdin? What are the other ones again
That I'm playing on currently?
that you're
Okay.
playing on currently?
I got Ragtime, uh, Great Gatsby, Wicked, Just in Time, 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, Chess, and Death Becomes Her.
Damien, Sean,
Yeah.
Mike,
Mm-hmm.
Charles. No, no.
Ragtime
Yeah.
is Rich Rosenzweig.
Rich Rosenzweig
Yeah.
and Chris Jago.
Jared Schoenig on Just in Time.
Yes. There's obviously that's still going, which is cool.
Yeah.
That's a variety of different styles,
Yeah.
different techniques.
Yeah.
What's
Mhm.
the most challenging show that you've ever subbed?
To me, it's Wicked. Is
Yeah, of
that
course. I knew
yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah.
there was anybody that I've interviewed that says any different. They're like, I said, what's the most difficult show you've ever played? Oh, Wicked. Then
Yeah.
I went to go see Matt play it. I'm like, okay, I get it. I could never do that. It's
Yeah.
so there's very little click from what I see, and you have to. This is so much going on, and his drum booth. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Matt is such an incredible drummer that trying to fill his shoes is a challenge. But then that's kind of the perfect example of like you're playing really driving rock drums behind a really large orchestra. And sometimes it feels like you are just like pulling the tractor behind you and it's not budging. Like it just feels like it's so hard to navigate where to place the time, where the conductor wants you to be, where the bass player's place in time. Like there's just so many things that are just always on your mind there, let alone the fact that Matt is an incredible drummer and the drum part is hard, even if you're just playing it in the practice room by yourself. But I mean, such an honor to play there. It's so cool to get to do it. But it is a very challenging drum book for sure.
So, juggling all of these shows,
Yeah.
what's the biggest challenge in subbing 7 shows at one time?
Yeah, I always say the touch because some drummers you go in for hit really hard, some hit really soft. And to me, like, I take really good notes in my charts. I feel like when you're in the booth, I never feel like it's too challenging to like you're never gonna sit down at the drum room at Wicked and accidentally start playing ragtime. Like I feel like you can keep that all pretty squared, but it's the touch that can be so hard. And many times when you're on seven shows, like often I'll play a different matinee than the evening show. And it's hard to remember, like this drummer buries the beater into the kick head, and this drummer feathers the kick the whole time. And the touch and where the drummer places the time, whether on the click or with the conductor, can be hard to remember. Just like we've said, like some drummers will play more laid back, some might play a little more ahead in different spots. Like that stuff can be really tricky to remember from show to show, more so than the parts.
Have you ever gotten a call to play two shows at the same time, and which one did you turn down?
If you're serious about Broadway, here are 2 resources that could change your career. The first is the free How to Land a Broadway Gig Roadmap. This breaks down exactly how the industry works, who the key players are, and how to position yourself to get the call. It covers building relationships the right way, getting on sublists, and creating real opportunities. And the best part? It's completely free. Just become a subscriber to Broadway Drumming 101. Free or paid, and you can grab it instantly. Head over to BroadwayBoundBook.com/roadmap and get it today. The second thing you need to get is the Broadway Sub Playbook, and it's just $7.99 at signaturebrandworks.com. This is a step-by-step guide that takes you from the moment you get the call all the way to opening night. How to study the score, build your sub book, take notes from the conductor, and walk into that pit like someone who absolutely belongs there. These are the exact systems that most working Broadway musicians use every day. If a career in theater is what you're after, these 2 resources will help get you there. If you want the full picture, pick up Clayton's book, Broadway Bound and Beyond. It's available at Amazon.com and other places where books are sold online. If you want a signed copy, you can get one today at signaturebrandworks.com. Thanks for listening.
Have you ever gotten a call to play two shows at the same time, and which one did you turn down? Oh, should I not put this out publicly?
Well, I'm trying to think if you're referencing a specific situation because nothing's coming to mind right now, but maybe there is.
No, like if you get a call,
If you get 2 shows at the same day or like same
yeah,
call. I see. Gotcha. I just go by whichever one calls me first.
yeah, that makes sense.
I think the thing about being a sub on 7 shows is in a lot of ways you're kind of a bad sub because you're not available a lot of the time. I've tried to communicate that to all the people I sub for when they ask me to learn a show. I tell them straight up, yes, I'd love to learn your show. Just so you know, I also sub on a lot of other shows. And so that's how I've kind of decided to be, is whoever calls me first gets me. And sometimes there's a little bit of flexibility where maybe one drummer's really in a pinch and another drummer has 4 other subs ready to go. And, maybe we can make a phone call and see if a shuffle can happen. But I don't rely on that. And if a shuffle can't happen, then I have to keep the date that called me first. I can't be in the business of bailing on one person to play for another person. And that's actually been challenging to keep that sometimes, because sometimes you get a call for a gig you really want to do, and sometimes you have another gig on the books. And I've just, even when it's hard, I try and hold on to this concept of like burning a bridge won't happen if you say, or it won't necessarily happen if you say you're unavailable, but burning a bridge could almost always happen if you bail on someone. There's a big difference. Someone won't be mad at you for saying, hey man, I'm so sorry, I'm already booked. Someone will definitely be mad at you if you bail on them. And so I've just kind of tried to hold that as like my guiding light. And that can be really hard because sometimes a really cool gig calls you and you're booked for something else. And maybe there's flexibility, but usually there's not. And I just try and keep the one that called me first is how I do things. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now. And yeah, that's how I've been trying to do things.
How have you handled notes when a conductor says, you know what, have a seat, Noah, and takes out their notepad and it's like 17 notes? Are you like, wait a minute, I didn't do that, or how do you handle it?
It's it's the thumbs up, it's the yes, absolutely. It's some conductors I feel like want to have more of a conversation about it. Like, hey, how did you experience this? And like, this is what I heard on my end. How can we fix this together? And that's cool. Other conductors want to tell you what was wrong. And it's all about being agreeable and taking the note and like you should never push back on a note, especially as a sub. It's like, it's your job to make the conductor happy. And so it's a smile and a thumbs up and a thank you for your feedback is, I think, will get you a lot farther than, if a conductor telling you you're dragging, but you feel like he's wrong. Like you're not going to get anywhere by saying like, no, man, no, you're wrong. Get fired very quickly.
What would you tell your younger self if you could speak to that person, that 22-year-old? It's like, you know what, Noah, this is what you should know.
I think I'd say like, number one, like take a breath, and like two, like our career is long. I think I came out of school feeling like I was ready to play Hamilton, like I was like so confused why, I wasn't immediately playing on Broadway. And I think being eager and being hungry is cool and is important, and you have to be as a musician, like you just have to be ambitious. But I think the advice I give to myself is that like our careers are long, and if you play your first Broadway show when you're 50, like what an accomplishment to have made it to a Broadway show. There's no rush. There's no path. There's no one way to do things. And like if you're around, things will happen. Keep your chops up and like just trust that things will happen, and like just take a breath. Let time go by. Our careers are long. Who knows what it'll look like in 5 years, 10 years. So ambition is good, but let time happen as well.
Do you think Broadway is having your own show is your ultimate goal, or is it one lane in a bigger career that you might have?
I think I would really love my own show one day. I feel like I've been, through all the touring and subbing and stuff. That's kind of just the path that I've been on. And I think that would feel like such a cool achievement after all of this. I've had a couple off-Broadway chairs that I'm so proud of. It'd be really cool to see one of them through to Broadway. But at the same time, our careers are long, like I would love, I love pop music. I love R&B. I love hip hop. Like it'd be really cool to get to do more of that one day. Right now with the blessing of having 7 shows, the downside to that is that I really don't do much outside of theater right now in this moment. And I do try and jump on those opportunities when they come my way. So having a show is definitely the main goal. I would love for that to happen one day. But I'm also open to like all sorts of possibilities. I think as long as I'm playing the drums, I can be happy. And I've been so lucky to get to do it and to pay my bills with the drums. So I think as long as that like continues to be the case, then I'll be happy. So it's a bad answer because it's yes and no. But yes, the main goal is to have my own show one day. And also I'd be happy with wherever life takes me.
Last question. You had Ants Marching, the musical, or to go on tour with Dave Matthews Band.
Oh man. Whoa. I feel like it'd have to go on tour with Dave Matthews Band. But maybe it's like do one tour with Dave Matthews Band, which then like gets me to circle back to play Ants Marching the musical one day. It's all good. But man. But also I feel like I would, who am I to step into the great Carter Beauford's shoes?
Now, would you go on tour with the 4-piece, or would you have the drums and the double bass kit? Did he do? He had double bass, didn't
Double
he?
bass, yeah. He played double kick, which I never got as a teenager. Actually, my first double kick pedal I bought when I was learning Wicked, because there's double kick pedal in Wicked.
Oh, wow.
I never played double kick pedal until Wicked. I love his big setup. It's so awesome. Because presumably, if you're on a tour that size, you do have someone who's going to set your drums up.
Yeah, that's true. It's no bus and truck tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's a tour bus truck.
Yeah, doing Waitress Bus and Truck was great because it was just like the 4-piece kit. Like it was a very simple setup. So thankfully, I didn't have one of those like 360 setups to handle.
Who knows, man? Ants Marching, the Dave Matthews musical.
Yeah, and it's probably coming.
Yeah, they've done everybody else. Like, who else's catalog can you mind?
At some point, the list will get to Dave Matthews. It's inevitable.
All right, I'm going to end the podcast by saying thank you very much, Noah, for being part of the podcast. It was great to get to know you, and congratulations on your 7 shows, and this will be the eighth, which will be,
Yeah, yeah,
oh my God, that's crazy, man.
yeah.
Congratulations. That's a tremendous feat unto itself and a big accomplishment. And I wish you well. And I'm sure we'll see each other on the Broadway campus because I'm
Yeah,
finally
I can't
finally
wait.
finally back there now.
Yeah, man. Can't wait. Thank you for having me.
And we will talk soon.
Yeah, sounds good, man.